promise you've never heard a ghost story like this one before. In the quiet hills of Greenbrier County, West Virginia, nestled among the Warren Ridges of the Appalachian Mountains, there's a story that's too eerie, too implausible, too perfectly ghostly to be real. A murder, mysterious death, and a mother who claimed her daughter came back from beyond the grave to name her killer. But this isn't the setup for a gothic novel or a late night campfire tale. This is a real story. And how's this for reality check? It ends in a courtroom, but with a ghost's testimony helping to convict a man of murder. This is the story of the Greenbrier ghost, the only case in American legal history where a spirit was officially entered into the record as a witness. Our story begins in January of 1897 with a young woman named Zona Heister. She was 23 years old, recently married, and now living with her new husband, a blacksmith named Edward Shue, in a small, weather-beaten home near the town of Lewisburg. Just 3 months after the wedding, Zona was found dead. It was a young boy who discovered her body lying at the bottom of the stairs. Her feet were together, one hand was stretched out at her side, and her head was tilted at an unnatural angle. Edward wailed with such theatrical grief that the doctor summoned to examine her could barely even get close. He declared the cause of death to be everlasting faint. Later changed to childbirth complications, though Zona had not been known to be pregnant. The funeral came quickly, too quickly. Edward wrapped a scarf around her head. Supposedly it was her favorite. He cradled her head during the viewing, refusing to let anyone near her. To most, it seemed like grief. But to Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heister, something felt off. Mary Jane never trusted Edward. She felt this unease about him from the moment they met, a quiet sense of menace she couldn't explain. When Zona died, Mary Jane asked God to send her a sign. Was it natural causes or something else? And then, according to her, Zona came back. For 4 nights in a row, Mary Jane claimed that her daughter's ghost appeared to her at the foot of her bed, completely pale, shivering, and sorrowful. Zona told her mother that Edward was violent, controlling, and that when she finally worked up the courage to tell him that she wanted to leave him, he strangled her to death. Mary Jane said the ghost turned her head slowly all the way around to demonstrate how her neck had been broken. It was the kind of vision most people might dismiss, a hallucination, a dream, grief put on display. But Mary Jane wasn't most people. Determined, Mary Jane went to the local prosecutor and told him everything. And while he was skeptical, the details were troubling. He reopened the investigation. 3 doctors conducted a full autopsy, and this time without Edward's interference. What they found was stunning. Her neck had in fact been broken. The first and second vertebrae were fractured, her windpipe was crushed, and there were bruises lining her neck. However, all of this was invisible beneath that scarf that she wore on her funeral. This was no accident. It was murder. And the prime suspect was suddenly transparently clear. As investigators looked into Edward's past, things got even darker. He had already been married twice before. His first wife divorced him after he beat her mercilessly, and his second wife died under mysterious circumstances. And now Zona, his third wife, her neck broken and dead. During questioning, Edward made strange, chilling remarks, like he knew he'd be arrested eventually, even though they couldn't prove that he did it. The autopsy said otherwise. Then came the trial, where the ghost, or at least the story of the ghost, would take center stage. The trial began in June 1897. The prosecution had the autopsy, a pattern of abuse, and to be honest, Edward's continued bizarre behavior. But the defense had a plan: discredit Mary Jane. So they brought her up to the stand and asked her under oath if it was true that she had been visited by her daughter's ghost. Mary Jane didn't flinch. She calmly told the jury how Zona came to her, described her appearance, repeated what the ghost had told her, that Edward broke her neck in a fit of rage. Now, technically this wasn't treated as formal evidence, right? The ghost's testimony wasn't what convicted Edward. But the story really did help to shape the case. At least it gave the jurors a vivid and definitely unforgettable image as to what happened and made Edward's guilt undeniable paired with the autopsy. The jury deliberated for just over an hour. Edward Shue was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Zona's gravestone still stands in West Virginia, nestled beneath an old tree. A historical marker nearby tells the story proudly, even defiantly, of the ghost who helped solve her own murder. And yes, the skeptics will always be there to point out the fact that the conviction primarily relied on physical evidence and not some phantom testimony. The legend endures because something about it just feels right. A woman who, although she was silenced in life, she wasn't in death. A mother had the ability to just fully trust her instincts. And in a small town, justice prevailed, although it was wrapped up in the supernatural. To this day, the Greenbrier ghost is still taught in folklore classes and true crime podcasts alike. She is, in the strangest sense, a pioneer. You know, the first ghost in U.S. legal history to have her voice heard in court. So, if you ever find yourself in Greenbrier County and the wind is rustling just a little too loudly through the trees, maybe it's just the breeze. Or maybe it's a woman still whispering her truth. Because the dead don't always stay silent. At least in this case, sometimes they demand justice. And they get it. Thank you so very much for watching. I appreciate you wholeheartedly. If you like stories like these and they send shivers down your spine, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on that notification bell. And make sure to catch up on some other videos we have out just for you. I'd also like to know in the comments, do you really think a ghost could solve a crime?